Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On the satellite imagery from yesterday, we had a lot of clouds gathering here over the Gulf of Alaska associated with a storm that brought gale force winds to the eastern Gulf Coast and spread some clouds in over the Panhandle. Pretty nice down over the southern areas there, and then the mainland part of the state kind of split in two with a lot of sunshine up over the northern half, clouds, areas of rain down to the south over the southern half, kind of a band of rainfall right through here extending back out toward Norton Sound. More showery conditions here over the southwest interior and some sunshine over Bristol Bay, and then more clouds, a lot more clouds out over the Aleutians, and then a system up here over the northwest Bering Sea, which today dropped southeastward across the Pribilof Islands, bringing showers to that area, spreading clouds in all along the southwest coast with some light rain and moisture moving into Bristol Bay, mostly clouds and clouds spreading over Kodiak Island. Again today, a lot of sunshine up over the northern interior from about the Alaska Range northward there through the Tanana Valley, all the way up across the Brooks Range and into the North Slope. A lot of good sunshine this afternoon with fog and low clouds hanging tough along the Arctic coast. A lot of clouds here through the Bering Strait, northern Bering Sea areas, although mostly mid and high level clouds, not too bad. Some clearing down around St. Lawrence Island this afternoon. That system that was off the coast yesterday moved off to the east and weakened considerably. There's a remnants of it. Kept some rain going over the southern southeast coast today and still hanging on to some rain at a net this afternoon, but mostly cloudy with scattered isolated showers back up to the north and west. A little bit of clearing up around the northern areas there, allowing temperatures to rise into the lower 60s. Scattered showers still going on along the North Gulf Coast areas, and then still clouds here over the southern half of the state with some scattered and isolated showers. Copper River Basin, back along the mountainous terrain, all the way out to some showers that were going on in the Norton Sound area, and then a system out here to the west pushing some moisture into the western Aleutian areas. A lot of low clouds and fog out toward Shemya. A little bit better conditions in toward Adak, and cloudy skies there across the southeast Bering Sea and the Alaska Peninsula. On the chart today, some scattered showers here along the peninsula with some rain reaching the southwest coast and Nunivak Island, extending back to some showers back to the Pribilof Islands, and then some clearing periods back here. That's actually poised to move in across the Pribilofs here at any time, so we could see some clearing this evening. Scattered showers up over the interior, lots of sunshine again, the Tanana Valley up to the north, back out towards the Noatak Valley areas, Kivalina, clear skies this afternoon. Same thing at Kotzebue, kind of clearing out a little bit over the Seward Peninsula, but looking at mostly cloudy skies with the showers in over Norton Sound. Areas of fog, in some cases dense fog, visibilities down to a quarter mile or less at time, throughout most of the day over at Barter Island, Kaktovik, with low clouds and fog over to the Barrow area. Conditions a little better over at Point Lay with some clearing in that location. And then this trough with the rain hanging onto the southern panhandle, but the low hanging off the coast. And we'll see tonight numerous showers are in the forecast from Queen Charlotte's all the way up into Juneau, Haines, and Skagway tonight. Scattered showers for the North Gulf Coast and mostly cloudy skies with a chance of showers over the Copper River Basin. Scattered showers also over south central Alaska, the western Alaska Range area, staying fair up to the north there, with mostly clear skies, and then the low clouds redeveloping over the North Slope and no change along the Arctic coast. Winds on the light side, not much of a gradient up there at all, so low clouds and fog will persist throughout the night tonight and extend down through the Chukchi Sea, the Bering Strait coast to St. Lawrence Island. Look for increasing chances of some low clouds and fog in that area, especially IFR on the north side of the island. IFR chances down across the Pribilof Islands with light wind conditions. This low pulling inland, bringing rain in across the Kuskokwim delta and into the southern Kuskokwim Valley areas, down across Bristol Bay. Band of rain extending down along the Alaska Peninsula as that upper level system tracks right into Bristol Bay overnight tonight. Otherwise, just showery conditions, cloudy skies, mostly cloudy for the Kodiak Island area with light winds. Light winds continue here for the eastern Aleutians, so watch for some low clouds and fog. And then some rain pushing eastward toward Adak with that front, and then showers and fog continuing out towards Shemya and Attu and those areas. And for the outlook for tomorrow, see this low here tracks a little bit farther to the north and east there. Still got low pressure off the coast, so showers still in the forecast for the southeast coast, all areas. Dixon Entrance all the way up to the north. Still mostly cloudy with chance of showers here for south central Alaska. Same thing for the Copper River Basin areas. Scattered showers again, pattern just like the last couple of days with the clouds and showers over the southern half of the state. Sunshine and fair conditions with warmer temperatures up over the central and northern interior. Maybe a few more lingering clouds up over the north slope than what you saw today, possibly down to the Brooks Range. The Arctic coast, we'll see a day tomorrow much like today with the areas of low clouds and fog. Again, that'll extend down into the Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, and look for lots of low clouds and fog conditions with light winds down across the Pribilofs. Another light wind day coming up for the eastern Aleutians, even the Alaska Peninsula with a chance of showers in that area. Also a chance of showers, mostly cloudy skies for Bristol Bay and over the southwest interior, but drying out toward the southwest coast. And looks like periods of light rain, kind of a narrow band of precipitation moving eastward into the central Aleutian areas. Strongest winds will be back out there to the west with some scattered showers. And then for Monday, we'll see this low tracks right up in toward the Queen Charlotte Islands, so that'll bring small craft advisories both to the south coast and for Clarence Strait. Southeast winds 30 knots in the forecast there for Monday with rain, possibly heavy at times, Prince of Wales Island, Metlakatla, Ketchikan, and those areas. Lighter amounts to the north, and then probably a dry day over the northern southeast coast, and looks partly cloudy with at least dry weather, partly sunny conditions here over south central Alaska for Labor Day. Same thing for the Copper River Basin, mostly due to just a lack of storminess rather than a presence of high pressure. Got some shower chances here over the southwest interior up into this area, but the Tanana Valley, maybe a few more clouds than what you've seen, but still partly sunny skies there for the upper Yukon Valley back out toward the Seward Peninsula. Then a cold front drops southward there across the Arctic coast Sunday night. Monday right into the Brooks Range. I'll probably bring some mixed precipitation from the eastern Arctic coast down into the west central Brooks Range. Rain and snow showers there for the western and central Arctic coast, but amounts really nothing amounting to very much at all. But definitely some colder air behind that. And then this system spread some rain up to the southwest coast. Much like today, there a chance of rain from Cape Newenham northward across Kipnuk to Amanik, with rain changing to showers over the Pribilof Islands. A lot of showers continuing, cloudy skies, IFR here for the western Aleutians and into the Bering Sea. But fair day, dry over the Bristol Bay area. Looking at temperatures along the southeast coast, these are mid-afternoon values. 59 at Sitka, not on the map there, but Juneau pushed up to 61 with some sunshine. Mid-50s over the southern southeast coast, both Wrangell and Petersburg reached 57. 54 at Yakutat, mid to upper 50s from the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound, where it did clear out this afternoon. 57 up at Gulkana, same temperature there at Talkeetna and Kenai. Palmer was up to 58, 57 over at Northway, and 55 at Delta, but 62 at Fairbanks, and a nice 60-degree reading at Tanana. Farther to the north, Bettles, 57 degrees. About the same there at Fort Yukon, lower to mid-50s for the Brooks Range, Arctic Village, and Anatuvik. Along the Arctic coast, mid to upper 30s there for the eastern and western coast. Point Lay up to 43. Then you get into the sunshine here. Noatak at 63 degrees. About the same at Buckland with 54 at Kotzebue. And that's Shishmaref there with 63 degrees, 54 at Nome, and Golovin at 55. For the Kuskokwim Valley, McGrath up to 54. Down the river there, Sleepmute at 52. Same reading at Bethel with 54 at Makoriak. That same reading also matched at St. Paul with moderate rain, keeping it a little cooler there at St. George with 49 degrees. 55 at Unalaska, False Pass up to 57. Mid-50s for the most part this afternoon across the Alaska Peninsula. Pilot Point at 53, but King Salmon up to 58. Mid to upper 50s there for Kodiak Island. Looking at the lows for tonight, lower 50s here, upper 40s to lower 50s for the Aleutians and the Bering Sea areas, with mostly in the 40s, mid to upper 40s here over the southwest and western interior areas, with lower 30s, mid 30s for the Arctic coast, mid 30s here down in the upper Yukon Valley, and lower 30s to upper 20s there, as in the case of Eagle, forecasting a low of 28 tomorrow, mid 30s for the Copper River Basin, mid to upper 40s there, south central Alaska, upper 40s to lower 50s for the southeast coast. And for the highs tomorrow, mid to upper 50s here for the Panhandle, lower 60s over the Copper River Basin. This is Sitna Valley, looking for lower 60s tomorrow. And again, temperatures back into at least the lower 60s here through the central interior areas, back out toward the Selawik Valley location, with Kotzebue forecast at 58. Cooler 30s and lower 40s over the North Slope and the Arctic coast. Much like today, maybe a little bit warmer. Mid to upper 50s for the Alaska Peninsula area, mid 50s for the Aleutians. Looking at flying weather, good VFR here from the North Slope tomorrow all the way down to Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound on the North Gulf Coast, but that moisture tracking mostly to the south will bring some marginal VFR in over the southern Kenai Peninsula. Showers will result in marginal VFR over Kodiak Island, extending into Bristol Bay, and that area extends across the Gulf of Alaska and across the Panhandle, improving a little bit there up to the north, and then IFR along just about all of the central and eastern Arctic coast. Again, a little bit better on the west side, but still marginal, and a big area of IFR out here over the Bering Sea, extending down with that frontal boundary into the central Aleutians. Passes, Anatuvik wide open tomorrow, VFR again, as well as Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal. Is a good forecast, rainy, marginal VFR becoming VFR by afternoon. Windy, though, will be VFR from start to finish, as well as Isabel and Mentasta, both looking to be VFR for the passes. Tanita, VFR. Portage, starting out marginal and then becoming VFR. Chilkoot and White, occasionally marginal, but trending toward mostly VFR in the afternoon hours. And the freezing levels, not really showing much of a thermal gradient here over the mainland areas, about 6,000 feet there, even down across the southeast coast, 8,000 feet over the Queen Charlottes. And then a cold pool here, or cool pool, with that upper level system dropping into Bristol Bay tonight and early tomorrow morning, so about 6,000 feet there, and then 10,000 feet out over the west central Aleutians ahead of that incoming system. Looking ahead to icing, a narrow band of it here above 9,000 feet coming into the central Bering Sea and the Aleutians there of the Rime varieties. Scattered icing threats here over Kodiak Island, Iliamna Lake, southern Kenai Peninsula area, with that moisture coming in mostly to the south of Cook Inlet there from Bristol Bay, and then areas of both Rime and mixed icing here over the southern best chance will be the southern southeast coast, less of a chance on up to the north. Winds aloft, jet stream showing one up here to the north at about 35 to 40 knots, the weaker branch, but it looks like back through here, that's going to drive a cold front into the northwest interior along the Arctic coast and the North Slope areas actually on Monday. And then the southern branch here, pretty zonal from west to east, 70 to 100 knots there. That's going to carry that front eventually out to the west into the southwest coast. And for 9,000 feet, kind of pretty light winds, light and variable here over the central and eastern interior, 0 to 5 knots, slight westerlies along the Arctic coast, northerlies at about 10 knots here coming southward through the western interior, picking up to about 15 knots over Kodiak Island, 20-knot winds along the central southeast coast there, but not all that strong. Strongest winds out here to the west toward the western Aleutians, west-southwest at 40 knots. 3,000-foot winds showing 10 to 20-knot winds along the coast, lighter, much lighter over the inside areas of the Panhandle, light and variable again through the central and eastern interior, and not much stronger, but more of a northerly direction there at about 10 knots here along the west coast, maybe up to 20 knots through the Bering Strait. Northwest 10 there for the western Arctic coast, light and variable under low pressure there on the east side. And then southerlies 25 to 30 knots there over the western Bering Sea, pushing into the central Aleutians. Turbulence, occasional light to isolated moderate chop, the heavier stuff staying north of Adak and Atka, but Shimmy and Attu occasionally moderate below 4,000 feet, and could be some light to very isolated moderate chop there for small aircraft, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, on down into the Bering Strait areas. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
The flood that buried Fairbanks in water that was 4 to 5 feet deep started on August 8th, 1967.
We had strong southwest flow in August 1967, and this provided a very large area of moisture from the North Pacific and the southern Bering Sea to be lifted up and into interior Alaska. We had a stationary frontal boundary persist across interior Alaska for over a week. So as weather systems moved in off the North Pacific and into the Bering Sea, they moved across this frontal boundary. So we had continuous weather systems moving right across the interior, which kept bringing more and more rainfall to the Fairbanks area.
Now, there are a lot of conditions to help create this extensive, this persistent rainfall. And of course, moisture is one of them. But moisture from a typhoon?
It was Typhoon Hope, which had been spinning around in the western Pacific, got pulled up into this flow, and that warm, moist air from the typhoon got pushed into the interior.
Normally, the Alaska rain prevents a lot of moisture from making its way into the Fairbanks area or into the interior. In August of 1967, that heavy influx of moisture from Typhoon Hope took a different path.
You've got the Alaska Range here, the Brooks Range here. There's really no high terrain here, and that moisture just can slide right in and right into Fairbanks. And when it came along this stationary boundary, and then the hills to our north, you know, all that air had to be lifted up, and it cooled, and it caused it to, enhance the precipitation.
So what was learned as a result of the 1967 flood? Well, it cost $240 million to build, and so far there hasn't been a flood since 1967. The closest Fairbanks came to flooding again was on June 4th, 1992.
The flood control project is upstream of downtown Fairbanks. If the water is expected to reach a certain level in downtown Fairbanks, they'll lower the gates here and start shaving off some of that water. If this floodway fills up all the way, the water will eventually get overtop this sill and go into the Tanana River and be diverted totally around Fairbanks.
Over 12,000 people were evacuated.
It was so strange to see this current going down the street and the boats going by, and then we got to Barnett Street. It was a little different then, but I just remember the rough water.
He thought something was internally wrong. Something had happened inside the house, like a pipe had burst or the sewer had backed up. He had no idea, none of us had any idea that the whole city was flooded. I mean, that was the furthest thing from our mind, thinking about the city flooding. There was no panic. There was just, we got a big problem.
Well, I was almost 5, and I just remember bits and pieces. I remember never being scared and thinking how cool it was watching the water rushing in around the cracks of the front door of our friend's house where we were staying at the time.
The military came and picked us up from our house in a boat. So here's a 4-year-old me sitting on the front of the boat thinking I'm just captain of the world.
There were a lot of very worried people, but everybody was pitching in and helping everybody else.
And then I found out we were actually going to be staying inside a high school on the 2nd floor. It was at Lathrop High School on the 2nd floor, which was a cool thing to me too, because I lived in a 1-story home.
The Lathrop Hilton was very busy, of course, with boats arriving and people coming. They wanted the names of everybody there, and then we were in touch with who was staying out at the universities. Always great confusion.
I remember being lifted out the next day by helicopter to the university from the rooftop. I remember that part, and I remember sleeping on tables up at the, I believe it was the Gruning buildings. The most frightened part, the river had washed the bridge away, and there was a beam that we had to walk across, this raging torrent, and I can remember having to walk across that with my mother and being very frightened. And I remember that being the only real scary part. The rest of it, from a 5-year-old's perspective, was pretty cool.
If I learned anything, it was that there's no need to panic. As long as safety's first, and as long as everyone's safe, the rest is just property.
What makes you stay?
Well, I guess the people. I've always had such a good time here. I enjoyed teaching. I liked it when I worked at the News Miner. I'm involved in lots of things here. I just like the people.
Well, first of all, I talked to some of the old timers, and they said, oh, we'll get maybe a little bit of water in the basement. So I listened to the old timers, but I also something in my gut told me that this wasn't, this could be a problem.
It was a continuous rain. I mean, there'd be very few breaks.
And this thing came in the night, you know. I got a hold of Bill Wally, and I said, "Hey, Bill, get on the radio and tell them that we may be having flooding here." And we woke up, and the next morning, and the city was underwater.
They handed me a sleeping bag and a radio. Safeway was across where the post office is now. They looked like they might have had a half-inch of water in there. They were pumping it out and trying to keep it out.
Was there concern about looting?
Well, there wasn't to start with. Here come two teenagers in a brand new canoe that was loaded to the gunwale. I just picked up the radio and said, what's the procedure on looting? And immediately Red Boucher's voice, the mayor of Fairbanks, came back and said, unhesitatingly said, shoot on sight. And there was no more looting in Fairbanks.
What has stayed with you till now that you can remember about the flood?
20 years of military and especially combat training. If you take action, and if you end up with egg all over your face, so you made a mistake. If you don't take action and people lose their lives, you will regret it forever.
The mood of the community when the flood hit.
Fantastic. Probably if you look through the archives, I called it the can-do city. At that particular time of year, we were not that far from freeze-up, and the whole community, from the university, Dr. Wood, everybody just pitched in, and I was very proud of them.
Would you change anything if you went through it today?
Not a bit. No, And I'm just thankful I had that gut instinct to go ahead and do what we did. I live in Anchorage now, but Fairbanks will always be my home of heart. They're just a different bunch of people. True pioneer spirit. So, hey, anything we want, anything we set our mind to do in Fairbanks, we get done.
Well, east to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots for the north coast, and southwesterlies 15 to 20 for the south coast. Clarence Strait, southerlies at 20 knots tomorrow with 4-foot seas, and Stevens Passage southeast 15, and then lighter, more southerly winds on up to the north. For Monday, small craft advisories here on the south coast up to 30-knot winds there with 10-foot seas. Clarence Strait southeasterlies forecast to increase to 30 knots. Frederick Sound, though, northeast at 15. Light variable winds for Lynn Canal and the Glacier Bay area. Easterlies at 15 knots for the north coast. And for south central Alaska, Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, and the North Gulf Coast here, as well as the east side of Kodiak Island and Shelikof Strait, all light variable winds with pretty slight seas, except up to 5 to 6 feet here out over the Gulf of Alaska. Westerly winds at about 10 knots for the Kamishak Bay area with 3-foot seas. And the outlook for Monday, a little bit more westerly here and a little bit higher, but not much. Still light, 15-knot westerlies, Kamishak Bay across the Barren Islands. Southwest at 10 for Shelikof Strait. Otherwise, things stay light and variable here, but with those 8-foot seas, that's good for a small craft advisory there for the east side of Kodiak Island. And light variable winds continue for the next couple of days there for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and Cook Inlet. And for Bristol Bay, light west winds tomorrow. 15-knot westerlies here for the Alaska Peninsula with small craft advisories due to high seas here from Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev, those 8 to 9-foot seas. That continues into Monday, even though the winds are light and variable due to the seas. You've got small craft advisories in these areas. Westerly winds 15 knots for Bristol Bay. And for the Aleutians, the Fox Islands west to southwesterlies 10 to 15 knots with seas up to 9 feet. Otherwise, southerlies there ahead of that front, so not too strong, not a real strong frontal boundary coming into the central Aleutians at 20 knots. Small craft advisory westerlies out towards Shimia. And that holds through Monday out there with southwesterlies into the west central Aleutians and southwest winds for the most part here at 15 knots through the central and eastern areas. For the southwest coast, northwesterlies 10 to 15 knots with seas up to 3 feet. Northerlies at 20 knots there for St. Lawrence Island. And then those kick up to small craft levels there, 25 knot northeasterlies, 20 knots from the northeast and northern Bering Sea, much lighter and more variable for the southwest coast, and just a breeze for the Pribilofs. Up along the Arctic coast, we've got east-northeast winds at about 10 knots here across the central and eastern areas with pretty slight seas. Then they had a little bit of an increase here, northeasterlies up to 20 knots there around the western capes, and from Wales to Cape Thompson, north at 20. And then those pick up the small craft northerlies there on Monday with 20 knot winds from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort. Otherwise, northwesterlies 10 to 15 knots here across much of the Arctic coast, taking a turn to more westerly there over toward Demarcation Point. And for tonight, for the Panhandle, clouds and showers this evening and overnight tonight with fair skies, mostly clear skies, dry conditions up over the northern and central interior areas. Still mostly cloudy skies with some scattered showers over southern Alaska. Rain with this system moving into the southwest interior, extending down to the Alaska Peninsula. And still showers over the Panhandle tomorrow, that low staying off the coastline there. Showers definitely over Kodiak Island, area moisture shifting eastward, mostly to the south of Cook Inlet, but catching the southern Kenai Peninsula areas. Another mostly sunny day there at Tanana Valley northward to the Brooks Range. Low clouds and fog on the Arctic coast. And then a front approaches the southwest coast on Monday. Another system spreads rain and wind into the southern Panhandle on Monday. And then we've got this front dropping down out of the Arctic for some mixed precipitation into the Brooks Range north slope and possibly the Arctic coast. Have a great
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.